Today I'm going over the section in Chapter 8 called The Undivided Will of the Sonship. Can you be separated from your identification and be at peace? Dissociation is not a solution, it is a delusion. Okay, meaning dissociating from our truth. We cannot be separated from our truth, which is our identification, which is that we are one with God, we are spirit. And we can't be at peace unless we identify with that truth. Dissociation, which we are doing every time we are identifying with the ego, is not a solution, it's a delusion. The delusional belief that truth will assail them, and they do not recognize it because they prefer the delusion. Judging truth as something they do not want, they perceive their illusions which block knowledge. So when we perceive the illusory world and believe that we are ego and that everyone else are separate bodies out there, we are blocking knowledge. Help them by offering them your unified mind on their behalf, as I am offering you mine on behalf of yours. So we are being offered by Jesus or Holy Spirit, whichever teacher you prefer, or both, a unified mind. And when we remember to practice forgiveness with everyone and everything out there, we are offering them a unified mind. Alone we can do nothing, but together our minds fuse into something whose power is far beyond the power of its separate parts. Beautiful words to describe practicing forgiveness and the mechanics of how it works. By not being separate, the mind of God is established in ours and as ours. The mind is invincible because it is undivided. So once again, he's reminding us that we are whole, we are one, we are not divided, and believing in any kind of division is delusional. The undivided will of the sonship is the perfect creator, being wholly in the likeness of God, whose will it is. You cannot be exempt from it if you are to understand what it is and what you are. By the belief that your will is separate from mine, you are exempting yourself from the will of God, which is yourself. Yet to heal is to make whole. Therefore, to heal is to unite with those who are like you. That's everybody. Because perceiving this likeness is to recognize the Father. If your perfection is in Him and only Him, how can you know it without recognizing Him? The recognition of God is the recognition of yourself. Why? Because we are God. We are one with God. We were created out of God's will, which is the same as God's thought. We are one with Him. And when we recognize this, this is how we discover our true identity. There is no separation of God and His creation. You will realize this when you understand that there is no separation between your will and mine. Let the love of God shine upon you by your acceptance of me. Now, the me you can think of as Jesus or Holy Spirit. It really doesn't matter. Remember, they're all just characters in the dream. We are all one. They are both aspects of our higher mind. So when we accept this truth from our higher mind, we will know who we are. My reality is yours and His. By joining your mind with mine, you are signifying your awareness that the will of God is one. So by identifying with God, with our true self, we are signifying that we are aware of God's will, which, by the way, is also our will, because we are the same as God. God's oneness and ours are not separate, because His oneness encompasses ours. To join with me is to restore His power to you because we are sharing it. I offer you only the recognition of His power in you, but in that lies all truth. As we unite with Him. Glory be to the union of God and His holy sons. all glory lies in them because they are united. The miracles we do bear witness to the will of the Father for his Son, and to our joy in uniting with his will for us. More beautiful words to tell us that when we identify with our truth, which is God, this is where we find our peace and joy. When you unite with me, you are uniting without the ego, because I have renounced the ego in myself and therefore cannot unite with yours. So that is what Jesus did when he was living here in a body over 2,000 years ago. He renounced the ego and he discovered that his truth was God. And that's why he cannot unite with us in our identification with ego. And he has given us this course so that we can learn how to renounce the ego just as he did. Our union is therefore the way to renounce the ego in you. Okay, there you go. So by uniting with Jesus or Holy Spirit, God, whatever you want to think of it as, it doesn't matter. It's our truth. It's our higher self. By uniting with that, that is how we renounce the ego. That is how we no longer identify with a delusional illusion. The truth in both of us is beyond the ego. Our success in transcending the ego is guaranteed by God. And I share this confidence for both of us and all of us. I bring God's peace back to all his children because I received it of him for us all. Okay, so when he renounced the ego and he accepted God as his Father and heaven as his home, he was actually renouncing the ego and accepting his truth for all of us because we are all one. He is our older brother. All of our minds are connected. So he's just showing us the way. He's saying, come with me. I already did it. Follow me. I'll show you how. And the truth is, eventually we will all do it because we are all one. And time only exists to give us as much time as we need to awaken to this truth, to renounce the ego and return our mind home. So when Jesus did it, he did it for all of us so that we can follow him. Nothing can prevail against our unified wills because nothing can prevail against God's. Would you know the will of God for you? Ask it of me who knows it for you, and you will find it. Because Jesus or Holy Spirit is the higher aspect of our mind, it already knows the truth. It's there just waiting to tell us what the truth is. We just have to choose it. We just have to listen to it. I will deny you nothing as God denies me nothing. God would also deny us nothing. But Jesus is sort of that middleman to help us get to God, to help us awaken from this false dream. Ours is simply the journey back to God, who is our home. Whenever fear intrudes anywhere along the road to peace, it is because the ego has attempted to join the journey with us and cannot do so. Sensing defeat and angered by it, the ego regards itself as rejected and becomes retaliative. You are invulnerable to its retaliation because I am with you. On this journey, you have chosen me as your companion instead of the ego, right? So every time we choose spirit, which means choosing Jesus, Holy Spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, every time we choose that, the ego always wants to fight back and will fight back. And I don't ever want any of you to be afraid of that. Just know that it's like a toddler having a tantrum. Your ego is having a tantrum. And just like a toddler, we don't take it seriously. We know it's just upset and expressing its upset. And we can just step aside and let it have its tantrum until it's done. And then we can return our mind to peace. Treat it like a child. The ego behaves like a child. And as we go through these seemingly difficult moments, because ego is fighting back, we can hold on to our connection to Jesus and Holy Spirit to help guide us through that temper tantrum that our ego appears to be having. Just don't take it seriously. As the Course tells us, we simply forgot to laugh when we had the tiny mad idea. That's why we're trapped in this thought bubble, reviewing this same guilt that we feel because we believe we separated from God over and over again, what seems like eons of time, but really it was just over in an instant, and we already returned our mind back home. We just don't know it because we're trapped inside this thought bubble thinking that we are separate from God. So choosing Holy Spirit or Jesus, choosing our higher mind is the way to return our mind home, how to renounce the ego. Even though the ego is going to keep trying to get in there and mess it all up. Don't take it seriously. Do not attempt to hold on to both, or you will try to go in different directions and will lose the way. That's our split mind, when we attempt to do both ego and spirit. The ego's way is not mine, but it is also not yours. The Holy Spirit has one direction for all minds. And the one he taught me is yours. Let us not lose sight of his direction through illusions, for only illusions of another direction can obscure the one for which God's voice speaks in all of us. Never accord the ego the power to interfere with the journey. It has none, because the journey is the way to what is true. Leave all illusions behind and reach beyond all attempts of the ego to hold you back. I go before you because I am beyond the ego. Jesus did this before us because he learned how to go beyond the ego. Or at least what appears to be before us, because there is no such thing as time. Reach, therefore, for my hand because you want to transcend the ego. My strength will never be wanting, and if you choose to share it, you will do so. I give it willingly and gladly because I need you as much as you need me. Because we are all one. So he wants us to return our mind home. Now, we already have, right? Because it's all over. But he wants us to escape from the ego's false dream. That's why we feel unhappy. This is why we're not at peace, because we are identifying with the ego. So this entire course is simply here to teach us how to renounce the ego, just as Jesus did. And if we hold his hand, meaning simply following him, identifying with his thought system, which is Spirit's thought system, he is teaching us how to return our mind home, just like he did.